good evening, and welcome to a time before time began. Close your eyes now. Gently let your eyelids fall shut like two soft curtains, and let the world you know slowly drift away. There are no cars here, no voices, no lights flickering in the distance. There is nothing that buzzes, or hums, or rushes. There is only the quiet, the deep, ancient, endless quiet. Now, feel your breath getting slower, in and out, like the softest tide on the farthest shore. And with each breath, you sing a little deeper, a little further and further into the past, further and further, until there are no cities, no forests, no rivers, no animals, no fish in the sea, no insects in the air, not even a single blade of grass. Further and further still. And now, there is nothing beneath you and nothing above you, except a sky that is not quite a sky, and a ground that is not quite a ground. Everything is gray, not a dark gray and not a light gray, but a gray that simply is, a gray that has no name. And the air, if you could call it air, is still. So still as stone, still as the inside of a closed eye. There is no wind, no breeze, not even the smallest whisper movement. Just a quiet, the long, deep, patient quiet. And the only things that exist in this very long, very slow beginning are stones. Just stones. Heavy stones. Cold stones. Silent stones. Millions upon millions of stones, lying where they fell, or where they always were. No one knows. They do not move. They do not breathe. They do not think. They only are. And they have been here like this for a very, very long time. So long that time itself has forgotten how to count. So long that the word long feels too short. So long that the only way to measure it is to stop measuring it and simply let it be. And that is where our story begins, or rather, where our story does not begin, because nothing, truly nothing, has begun yet. So let your body grow heavy now, heavy as the stones themselves, heavy as the whole sleeping earth, and let us step very slowly, very carefully into the first chapter. Chapter 1, the way to the first stones. And then there were the stones. But to say and then is already too fast, because there was no then, not really. There was only now, an endless now, a now that stretched backward and forward, like a flat gray plain that never met a hill or a valley or shadow. And in this endless now, the stone simply rested. Imagine, if you can, a single stone, not a large stone and not a small stone, just a stone the size of a sleeping cat, or a loaf of bread, or a closed fist. It has no sharp edges and no round edges either. Its surface is rough, but not too rough. Smooth, but not too smooth. It is simply stone. And this stone, this one stone, has been sitting the same place, on the same gray ground, under the same gray sky, for longer than you can possibly imagine. Longer than 1,000 years. Longer than 1,000,000 years. Longer than 1,000,000,000 years. And in all that time, nothing has touched it. Nothing has moved it. Nothing has even looked at it. Because there are no eyes to look. There are no hands to touch. There are no feet to walk near it. And yet, the stone does not mind. It does not feel lonely, because it does not feel anything at all. It simply sits, and slowly, very slowly, the light that falls upon it, if you could call it light, shifts. Not because the sun moves, because there is no sun yet. Not because the stone moves, because the stone does not move, but because something in the grayness, something in the endless gray, changes its mind just a little, just a breath. And then the gray becomes a slightly different gray, a gray that leans just barely toward a very pale, very tired gray blue. And the stone, the same stone, now looks different, not because it has changed, but because the world around it has sighed in its sleep and turned over. And then the gray blue fades back into first gray, the tired gray, the gray that does not remember ever being anything else. And the stone, the old stone, the heavy stone, the stone that has never spoken a word, just lies there, silent, silent, silent. And you, if you were there, which you are not, because you are here, in this warm room, with your eyes closed and your breath slowing, 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 you would hear nothing, absolutely nothing. No birds, no wind, no water dripping, no leaves rustling, no heartbeat, no breath, just a great, wide, empty silence. And that silence is so deep, so complete, that after a while, you would stop listening for sounds. You would forget that sound ever existed. You would sink down, down, down into the quiet, like a stone sinking into soft mud, lower and lower, further and further, until the quiet becomes you and you become the quiet. And the stones, all the stones, everywhere, as far as the grayness reaches, they do not know you are there. They do not know anything. They are not waiting. They are not hoping. They are not remembering. They are just lying there, heavy, cold, still, and the gray sky, the endless ceiling of nothing, hangs above them, pressing down, but not really pressing, just being there, being above, being gray. And then a very long time passes. And then another very long time passes. And then another, and the stones do not notice. They do not count the passing of time, because they have no need to count. Time is not a river to them, flowing somewhere. Time is not a path to be walked. Time is simply the space between one gray moment and the next gray moment, and all those moments are the same. So the stones rest, and rest, and rest. And if a stone could dream, which it cannot, it would dream of nothing, and that nothing would be perfect, and that perfection would never end. And the old stones just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stones just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stones just lay there, silent, silent, silent. Chapter 2, the slow grinding of dust. And then, after a time that has no name, something almost happens. But almost happens is too strong a phrase, because nothing truly happens. Nothing begins. Nothing ends. Nothing changes. And yet, there's a feeling of very small, very far away, very sleepy feeling that something, the grayness, something, the heaviness, is shifting. Not shifting like a mountain moves, because mountains do not exist yet. Not shifting like an ocean turns, because oceans do not exist yet. Shifting like a thought that you cannot quite catch, a thought that slips away the moment you reach for it, a thought that was never really there at all. And what is shifting, if anything is shifting, is the dust, because the stones, the old stones, the endless stones have been lying against each other for so long, so very long, that they've just begun to rub against one another, not rubbing like two hands rubbing together for warmth. Not rubbing like a stone against a blade to make it sharp, rubbing so slowly, so incredibly slowly, that a single grain of dust takes 1,000,000 years to fall. And then another grain, and then another, and each grain, each tiny, tiny, tiny piece of stone is so small that you could fit 1,000,000 of them on the tip of your eyelash and still have room for 1,000,000 more. And these grains, these flakes, these almost nothings drift away from the stones, not falling, not floating, just drifting, moving through the grayness like sleepwalkers, slowly, 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 with nowhere to go and nothing to do when they get there. And then one grain touches another grain. And this is not an exciting thing. It does not make a sound. It does not create a spark. It does not change the world. It is simply a touch. A tiny, tiny, meaningless touch between two pieces of dust that will never know they touched. But the touch happens. And then another touch. And another. And after a very long time, a time so long that it makes the first long time look like a blink, the grains begin to stick together. Not sticking like glue. Not sticking like mud. Sticking like two tired people leaning against each other. Too tired to move. Too tired to care, just leaning. And the little cluster of dust, this tiny accidental family of grains, rests on top of a larger stone. A stone that has been there since the beginning of this story, which is to say, since forever. And the larger stone does not notice the dust. It does not feel the weight, because the dust has no weight. It does not feel the touch, because the dust is too soft to touch. It simply continues being stone. And the dust, the little gray cloud of almost nothing, sits on the stone and waits. But waiting is not the right word, because waiting implies expectation. And there is no expectation here. There is only being. Being on the stone. Being still. Being gray. And the gray sky above. And the gray ground below. And the gray stones everywhere between. They all remain exactly as they were. And the dust does not grow. It does not multiply. It does not become something else. It is just dust. Dust from stones. Dust that used to be stone. Dust that will never be stone again. And if you listen very closely with your inner ear, the ear that hears things are not there, you might imagine a sound so quiet that it is almost not a sound like the softest breath, the gentlest sigh, the smallest whisper of the smallest wind. But there is no wind, there is no breath, there is no sigh, there is only the dust settling onto the stones, grain by grain by grain, slower than the growth of fingernail, slower than the turning of the earth beneath your sleeping body, slower than the slowest thing you have ever imagined. And the stones, the patient stones, the silent stones, they do not mind the dust. They do not welcome it. They do not reject it. They simply accept it the way the night accepts the darkness, the way the ocean accepts the deep, the way your heavy arms accept the blankets that cover them. And everything is still. And the old stones just lay there, silent. And the old stones just lay there, silent. Chapter 3, The Gray That Never Ends. And now, let us look, not with our eyes, because our eyes are closed, but with our minds at the color gray, because gray is not one color. Gray is many colors, all tired, all faded, all worn down by the endlessness of everything. There's the gray of a morning that never becomes afternoon, the gray of a cloud that never rains, the gray of a stone that is forgotten. It was once molten fire, a long time ago before the story began, when the world was not yet asleep, but screaming. But that screaming is over now. That fire is out. That heat has cooled. And what has remained for longer than anything has ever remained, is this gray. And this gray has layers, like the skin of an onion, but without the sharpness, without the smell, without the tears. There's a gray of the sky, which is not a sky, but let us call it a sky, because we need a word for the above. This gray is thin, stretched, like a piece of cloth that has been washed too many times, until all the color is leaked out, leaving only the ghost of color, the memory of color, the suggestion of color. And this thin gray, this tired gray, does not move. It does not swirl. It does not part to reveal a brighter gray beneath. It simply hangs like a curtain that no one will ever draw, hangs like a sheet over a mirror that no one will ever look into. And then there's the gray of the ground. And this gray is different. This gray is thick, heavy, dense, like the bottom of a river that has no water, like the floor of a cave that has never seen a flame. This gray does not float. It does not drift. It presses downward, into itself, into the deep, into the dark that lies below the gray. And between these two grays, the thin above and the thick below, there is the gray of the stones. And the stones are every gray there is. Some stones are so pale, so close to white, that they seem to glow not with light, but with the absence of dark. They are the bones of the earth, before the earth had bones, before the earth had a name. Some stones are so dark, so close to black, that they seem to swallow the little light that is not there. They are the shadows of nothing, the holes in the world where even gray cannot go. And most of the stones are simply gray, not pale, not dark, just gray. The gray of a stone that has never been anything else. The gray of a stone that does not dream of being blue, or green, or red, or gold. The gray of a stone that is satisfied, if a stone could be satisfied, with being exactly what it is. And these stones, these gray stones, lie in rows and not rows, in piles that are not piles, in patterns that are not patterns. They are scattered like seeds that will never grow, like coins that will never be spent, like stars that will never shine. And if you could walk among them, which you cannot, because walking has not been invented yet, you would step from one gray stone to another gray stone, and then to another, and then to another, and each stone would feel the same under your foot, hard, cold, unyielding. And after a while, a very short while, you would stop noticing the stones. You would stop noticing the gray. You would stop noticing anything at all. And you would become like the stones, still, silent, heavy, and you would lie down on the gray ground, among the gray stones, under the gray sky, and you would close your eyes, which are already closed, and you would feel the grayness enter you, slowly, slowly, filling you like cold water filling a cup, until there is no you left, only gray. And then you would rest, and you would rest for a very long time, and the stones would rest beside you, and no one would dream, and no one would wake, and the gray would continue, and continue, and continue, like a song with no beginning and no end, like a breath that never finishes, like a word that is never spoken, but always there, always waiting, always gray. And the old stones just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stones just lay there, silent, silent, silent. Chapter 4, the faintest shadow. And then, after a time that is no number, something new almost appears. Not new like a flower opening, because flowers do not exist. Not new like a bird singing, because birds do not exist. New like a thought that you forgot you were thinking. A thought that was there all along, hiding behind the other thoughts, waiting to be remembered. And what almost appears, what seems to be trying to be born, is a shadow. But shadow of what? There is no light to cast a shadow. There is nothing to block the light, because there is no light. And yet, there is a place, a very small place, a very quiet place, where the gray is slightly less gray, not darker, not lighter, just less. And this place, this less gray place, is about the size of a pebble, a tiny pebble, a pebble that you can hold between your thumb and your first finger, if you had fingers, which you do not. And this pebble, this slightly less gray pebble, lies among the other stones, looking almost exactly like them, but not quite. There's something different about it, something you cannot name, something that is not a something, but the absence of a something. And if you stare at this pebble for a very long time, which you would not, because staring is too active, too awake, you might begin to see, not with your eyes, but with the back of your closed eyelids, a faint, a very faint, a whisper faint shape, a shape like a circle, but not a circle, a shape like a hole, but not a hole, a shape like the shadow of a stone that is not there, a stone that was never there, a stone that will never be there. And this shape, this almost shadow, does not move, it does not grow, it does not shrink. It simply is as still as the stones around it, as silent as the sky above it. And the other stones, the stones that are fully gray, the stones that have no less gray places, they do not notice the pebble. They do not care about the pebble. They lie beside it, around it, beneath it, and they feel nothing, because stones do not feel jealousy. They do not feel curiosity. They do not feel loneliness or wonder or fear. They only feel nothing, and nothing is what they have always felt. And so the pebble, the almost shadow pebble, remains alone in its less grayness, not sad, not happy, just different. Different in a way that does not matter. Different in a way that changes nothing. And then a very long time passes, and the pebble remains the same. And then another very long time passes, and the pebble still remains the same. And then another, and the pebble does not change. It does not become darker. It does not become lighter. It does not become a shadow in truth. It only almost is, and there's something peaceful about this almost. Something sleepy. Something that asks nothing of you. Something that does not demand your attention or your understanding. Because the world of stones, the world of silent gray stones, is a world of almosts. Almost light, almost dark, almost movement, almost sound, almost life, but never quite, never fully, never enough to wake the earth from its long, deep, dreamless sleep. And so the pebble rests and the stones rest and the gray sky rests and you rest deeper and deeper, further and further into the quiet, into the stillness, into the endless gentle gray. And the old stones just lay there, silent, silent, silent. And the old stones just lay there, silent, silent, silent. Chapter 5, The Patience of Broken Edges. And now, let us look very slowly at one stone in particular. Not because this stone is special, not because this stone is different from the others, but because looking at one stone, just one, helps the mind settle, helps the thoughts grow heavy, helps the body sink into the surface beneath it. So find this stone with your mind. It is a medium stone, not too big, not too small. It is lie on its side, or maybe on its bottom. It is hard to tell with stones, because stones do not have tops and bottoms, not really. They have sides, many sides, and each side is a little different from the others. One side of the stone is smooth, very smooth, smooth like glass that has been underwater for 1,000 years. Smooth like a cheek that has just been kissed. Smooth like the inside of a seashell that has never held a sea. And this smooth side, this gentle side, faces upward toward the gray sky, as if the stone is offering its softest surface to the nothing above. And another side of this stone is rough, rough like tree bark, but there are no trees, rough like sandpaper, but there is no sand, rough like the tongue of a cat, but there are no cats. It is a roughness that has no name, a roughness that exists only because the stone broke a long, long, long time ago and never healed, because stones do not heal. They do not grow new skin over their wounds. They do not forget the moment they were cracked. They simply carry the crack forever, and this crack, this break, this line where the stone used to be whole, runs down the side of the stone from a place near the top to a place near the bottom, and then stops. Not because it reached into the stone, but because it grew tired of breaking, tired of being broken, and simply gave up. And the edges of this crack are sharp, sharp enough to cut a finger, if there were fingers to cut, sharp enough to draw blood, if there were blood to draw, sharp enough to remind you, if you needed reminding, that even stones, even the oldest stones, even the most patient stones can be broken, but they are not sad about it. They do not mourn their brokenness. They do not wish to be whole again. They simply are broken, and being broken is just another way of being. And then, after the breaking came the waiting, and the stone waited, and waited, and waited, through gray days that were not days, through gray nights that were not nights, through gray seasons that were not seasons. The stone waited, and the sharp edges of crack, the sharp edges that could cut slowly, very slowly, began to dull, not because something rubbed against them, not because the wind blew across them, but because time itself, the weight of time, the endless pressure of one gray moment pressing against the next, wore them down, grain by grain by grain, and the sharp edges became less sharp, and then less sharp, and then less sharp, until they were not sharp at all, until they were just edges, rounded edges, soft edges, edges that could no longer cut anything, because there was nothing to cut, and because they had forgotten how. And this is the patience of stones. The patience to wait while sharp edges become soft. The patience to lie still while cracks form and cracks fade. The patience to be nothing for longer than anything has ever been nothing. And if you could feel this patience, if you could let it enter your bones, your muscles, your thoughts, you would feel your own edges softening, your own sharpness dulling, your own hurry, slowing, until there is no hurry at all. Only the slow, soft, endless patience of the stone. And the old stones just lay there, silent, and the old stones just lay there, silent. Chapter 6, The Breath That Never Comes. And now we come to a place in the story where nothing happens for a very, very long time. Longer than the first long time. Longer than the second long time. Longer than all the long times put together. If you could put them together, which you cannot, because they are too long and too many and too gray. In this place, in this very long nothing, the stones do not change. The gray does not shift. The dust does not fall. The shadows do not almost appear. Everything is exactly as it was, and exactly as it will be forever. And there is a word for this, a very old word, a word that no one speaks anymore, because there is no one to speak it. The word is stillness. But not the stillness of a room after someone leaves. Not the stillness of a forest at midnight. Not the stillness of a held breath. This is a stillness that has never known movement. A stillness that is not the absence of something, but the presence of nothing. And in this stillness, in this endless, empty, gray stillness, there is no air, no wind, no breath, not because the air is waiting to blow, but because there has never been air, there has never been wind, there has never been breath. And yet, if you listen very closely, with the ear that hears what is not there, you might imagine, just imagine that the stones are breathing, not breathing in and out like lungs, not breathing like the rise and fall of a sleeping chest, breathing like the earth breathes, when the earth is too tired to breathe, too old to breathe, too gray to care. A breath that takes 1 billion years to inhale, and 1 billion years to exhale, and 1 billion years in between. A breath so slow, so patient, so impossibly gentle that it cannot be measured, cannot be felt, cannot be heard. And this almost breath, this breath that never comes, this breath that is only the memory of breath that was never taken, moves through the stones, not moving them, not touching them, not changing them, just passing, like a thought that is not thought, like a dream that is not dreamed, like a word that is whispered in a language that has no words. And the stones, the silent stones, the patient stones, they do not feel this almost breath. They do not welcome it. They do not reject it. They simply are in the same space at the same time as the breath that is not there. And this is the deepest stillness. The stillness before sound. The stillness before movement. The stillness before time remembered itself. And you, lying here, with your eyes closed and your breath slowing and your body heavy, you are part of the stillness now. You have drifted so far, so deep, so far into the gray that you are no longer a listener. You are no longer a person. You are almost a stone yourself. Heavy, cold, still, and the stones around you, the stones that have been here forever, the stones that will be here forever. They do not know you are there. They do not care. They simply lie beside you in the great, gray silent, forever, and there is nothing to fear, nothing to want, nothing to remember, nothing to forget, only the stillness, only the gray, only the stones, and the breath that never comes, and the silence that never ends, and the old stones just lay there, silent, and the old stones just lay there, silent. Chapter 7, The Fading of the Listener. And now that you have been with the stones for so long, now that you have forgotten the world outside, now that your thoughts have slowed to the pace of dust falling, it is time to fade, not to leave, not to wake, to fade, like the gray of the sky fades into the gray of the ground, like the smooth side of the stone fades into the rough side, like the almost shadow fades into the stone that casts it. You are fading slowly, gently, peacefully into the stillness. And as you fade, as you become less and less of a listener and more of a stone, you might notice that the stones are not as cold as they were before. Not warm, never warm, but less cold, as if the long, long, long patience of the stones is generated. Not heat, but the absence of cold, a neutrality, a balance, a place where hot and cold do not matter, because there is no one to feel them. And this neutrality, this balance, this place without temperature, wraps around you like a blanket made of gray, a blanket that weighs nothing, a blanket that is not soft and not rough, a blanket that simply covers. And under this blanket, under this gray, neutral, weightless cover, you feel your body dissolving, not dissolving like sugar in water, dissolving like a stone in a river that is no water, dissolving like a thought in a mind that has forgotten how to think, dissolving into the gray, into the stillness, into the stones. Your arms become stones, heavy stones, silent stones, stones that will never reach for anything again. Your legs become stones, still stones, patient stones, stones that will never walk anywhere again. Your chest becomes a stone, a smooth stone, a stone that does not rise and fall, a stone that does not breathe. Your head becomes a stone, a round stone, a stone that holds no thoughts, no memories, no dreams. And your eyes, your closed eyes, become two small stones, two gray pebbles that have never seen light and never will. And you are gone now, not dead, not asleep, just stone. And the stones around you, the millions upon millions of stones, the stones that have been here since before time began, they welcome you, not with joy, not with sadness, with the quiet acceptance of stone for stone, of gray for gray, of silence for silence. And now there is no listener, there is no story, there is no history, there is only the earth, when the earth was only silent stones, and the gray sky above, and the gray ground below, and the gray stones in between, and everything is exactly as it should be, and the old stone just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stone just lay there, silent, silent, silent. Chapter 8. The return to the surface. And now that you have rested with the stones, now that you become stone yourself, it is time, very slowly, very gently, to return, not to wake up suddenly, not to open your eyes with a start, but to drift back, 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 like a stone rising through water that is not water, like a shadow fading into light that is not light. First, feel your head that was a round stone, your head that was gray and silent. Feel it becoming your head again, soft, warm, filled with the ghosts of thoughts, thoughts that are not quite thoughts, thoughts that are more like echoes, echoes of echoes. And then feel your chest that was a smooth stone, your chest that did not rise or fall. Feel it remembering how to breathe, a small breath, a tiny breath, a breath as small as a grain of dust, and then another, slowly, slowly, slowly. And then feel your arms that were heavy stones, your arms that could not move. Feel them remembering how to lie beside you, softly, loosely, like sleeping animals too tired to wake, but waking anyway. And then feel your legs that were still stones, your legs that would never walk again. Feel them remembering their length, their weight, their place on the bed, in the room, in the world. And now, feel your eyes that were two small pebbles, two gray pebbles that had never seen light. Feel them still closed, still resting. But aware now, aware of the darkness behind them, a darkness that is not gray, a darkness that is warmth. And you are back, not all the way back, not fully awake, but back enough to know that you are not a stone, back enough to know that you are lying in a warm room on a soft surface, under a blanket that is not gray. And the stones, the old stones, the silent stones are not gone. They are still there, in the place before time, in the gray forever, waiting, patient, silent. And you can return to them whenever you wish, whenever you close your eyes, whenever you let your thoughts slow and your breath deepen and your body grow heavy. They will be there. They have always been there. They will always be there. And now, take one more slow breath, a breath that belongs to you, not to the stones, a breath that is warm and soft and human. And when you are ready, and only when you are ready, you may open your eyes. But there is no rush. There is never any rush. You can stay here, in the space between stone and human, in the space between gray and color, in the space between silence and sound, for as long as you like. And the stones will keep you company, and the gray will hold you, and the stillness will carry you, gently, gently, into the rest of your night. And the old stones just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stones just lay there, silent, 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 and the old stones just lay there, silent, silent, silent,